we're going to discuss three important areas that will help explain the Ascension. The first, we're going to talk about my classmate, Cheeksy Flannery. I'll tell you a little bit more about Cheeksy in a little while. Then we're going to have a little theology lesson in the Ascension, and then we're going to have a teaching on how the Ascension, being a feast for human beings, relates to the present problem with illegal immigration in our country. Wow, you can't wait, can you? Okay. Let's talk first of all about Cheeksy Flannery. This is a real person. And when I was in seminary, well, let's just put it this way, we had a lot of nicknames for each other. Some I can tell you, some might disedify you. So we'll just leave it with Cheeksy Flannery. Now, how did he get the name Cheeksy? Well, he had big fat cheeks. And that's how we got the name Cheeksy. Now, let me put it to you this way. Cheeksy was not at the top of the class. Let's put it that way. He was not exactly a Thomas Aquinas. And the professor would usually, when he wanted to introduce a topic, would ask us what we thought about it. What could we tell him about a certain topic? So it comes to the Ascension. And you know how it is in the classroom when the professor asks a question, you put your head down to the desk, you don't want it to see you, you know? So we all had our heads down to the desk because every time he asked a question, he was setting a trap for us, and we knew. We weren't that stupid. We knew he was going to trap us. So we all have our heads down, and he says, well, gentlemen, who can tell me what is meant by the Ascension? And all of a sudden, one hand goes up. Whose hand goes up? Cheeksy Flannery. And we all say, oh, here it comes. Yes, Mr. Flannery, what does the Ascension mean? And Cheeksy goes, the Ascension? That's easy. Well, what is it, Mr. Flannery? It means he went up. What else? That was his theological explanation. Well, Mr. Flannery, there's a little bit more to it. Well, I'll tell you a little bit more to it. We have this idea about going up, and usually it's because we have a concept of going up into heaven. And then you also have another concept about what, when you go down, where you go? You go to hell. So anyway, Ascension means that Jesus went up, but up is not really a place. Okay, up is a, how could I say it? It's a certain state of being. It's a state of being. And it means that he is in the presence of God. That Jesus, a human being, like us, is in the presence of God for all eternity. Now, that's a fantastic thing to think that a human being is in the presence of God. Now, we also say that he sits at the right hand of the Father. And again, this whole idea of right hand is metaphorical. What that means, he is sitting in power with the Father. He reigns with God the Father. And then we say he is our intercessor. He is our intercessor. What does that mean? He pleads our cause. He pleads our cause. What's our cause? Our cause is to be relieved of our sins and to be made acceptable to the Father. Because before the sacrifice of the cross, we were not acceptable to God. And Jesus, by the cross, redeems us and makes us acceptable to God. Now, there's something else that we have to keep in mind here. When Jesus is risen from the dead, you recall very clearly in the gospel it tells us that Thomas wanted to put his finger in the nail marks and his hand in his side. What does that tell us? That the humanity of Jesus still bears the marks of the crucifixion. that he is very much a human being, very much shared in our human experience of life and death, and of course, now resurrection and ascension. Why is it important that he still bears the marks? Because when the Father looks at Jesus, our intercessor, he sees, and this is true reparations, the reparation that Jesus made for us by shedding his blood on the cross and making us righteous and giving us the right to enter the kingdom of heaven. That's the high calling of humanity. It is for us. See, all these feasts that we celebrate tell us about Jesus, but about us who are saved by Jesus and who will also rise with him in glory and enjoy the face of God forever in heaven. The Father sees those wounds. He remembers, again metaphorical, he remembers the sacrifice which makes humanity acceptable to God. Wow, isn't that fantastic? It is. Think about that. Now, what about immigration? Oh, you're wondering, how's it going to be immigration? You'd be surprised what I can do. You know why? Because it's tied in with theology. Every human being is created in God's image and likeness. And every human being is called to be with God forever in heaven. Therefore, every human being has inherent dignity and must be treated as such. Keep that in mind as we go through a couple of scenarios here. You have been hearing over these past years, more recently past months and weeks, about the influx of illegal immigrants coming across the southern border. Don't get me wrong, folks, it is a problem. It is a problem. Problem for many reasons. Let me go through some of the problems that illegal immigration causes, and then talk about, well, what do we do about it? You see, we might have problems in life, but we're also given the gift of intelligence and the gift of faith that enables us to deal with those problems. And we must deal with those problems as, first of all, as human beings, and secondly, we must deal with them because these people, too, are called to share in God's life forever. And we have something to say about both scenarios. We have our borders being flooded. I am told that since the beginning of this year, 23, there's over 1.25 million illegal immigrants who have crossed the border. A lot of people. You have seen pictures in television, in newspapers, of people crossing the border, people who have nowhere really to go. Immigration services are unable to care for all of them. They are sleeping in the streets of El Paso or Brownsville. Some people are held in holding areas. Some people, because they're being held in holding areas, are not even being able to get what they need in order to survive. We had a story this morning. A little girl was in a holding area and was unable to get the specific medical attention that she needed. They tried to treat her. The facility was unable to provide for what she needed. Had she been in a regular hospital, perhaps she could have survived. So what do we have now? We have an infrastructure that is unable to take these people in and provide them with what they need for them to live as a human being should be able to live. So let's take a look at the infrastructure. It's not there. So people now are being shipped to different places like commodities. Well, then we'll ship them to New York. Now they're complaining. We have no more room up here. We can't support them. Send them to Los Angeles. Send them to Chicago. Mayors are saying, we can't handle it anymore. And so you see the homeless growing and growing in numbers, and human beings being treated in a less than human way. Unfortunately, that's the case. Now, what happens even when we get past that? We don't have infrastructure to care for them. What happens with hospitals who are overrun? What happens with schools? Young children have to go to school. Schools can't accommodate them. What happens when we have a lack of funding for housing or other social needs that these people have to have? And if nothing happens, we have a society that begins to deteriorate because, first of all, we have people who are not cared for, but also a society that grows to be more and more callous. It's not my problem. Nobody told them to come. I don't care what happens. I'm pretty happy here in Naples. I don't have to go to New York City. I don't have to go to Texas or California or Chicago. It's not true. You might not have to go. But everyone in our country is affected by it. And sooner or later, and I know from St. Matthew's House, it will filter its way here too. What else happens? If the borders are not secured, we have an influx of drugs. Day after day, I'm hearing about people who are dying from drug overdoses, especially from fentanyl. And that's where it's coming from, over the border. We have sex slavery coming in over the border. So we have a major, major problem. And it does infect the whole of society. When you have young girls and women who become parcels for the sex slave industry, when you have young men and young women and old men and old women taking opioids and overdosing, we do have a problem. The problem has reached us. It's here in Naples too. Don't kid yourself. I'm at the hospitals. I'm at St. Matthew's House. And I know what's going on. And I know where the drugs are coming from. It is a major problem. But whose fault is it? Yeah. It's the fault of the government. Both sides don't say, oh, of course, he's just being conservative and saying build a wall. I didn't say that. The problem is the government. It should never come to this stage. The government has to take responsibility for these people that they are allowing to come into the country and not having the facilities or the abilities to care for them or to enculturate them into our American society. So, if somebody says it's their own fault, is it their own fault looking for a better life? No. It's the fault of those people who export human beings. You think these people are just crossing the border because they brought the whole idea up themselves and that they can do it all themselves? No. They're human exporters. And people are paying for that. And they're paying a lot of money to have a better life. And they still owe the money when they come to this country. They come after them to collect the debts that they owe these exporters of human beings. That's the truth. That's the truth. 1.25 million already this year. It's now our problem. It's our problem. And don't let the politicians tell you it's not their fault. Yes, it is their fault. America is called to be a moral country. We've always been a moral country throughout our history. So we have to do something about it. They're here. Don't be so foolish as to listen to some politicians who say, oh, when I get in office, we're going to seal the border and we're going to send them all back. No, you're not. You might and you should try to seal the border. Send them all back? No way. Not only is it difficult, it's immoral, unless the person is a criminal. If criminals aren't crossing the border, they have to go. No doubt about it. Why can't you send them back? If they're here over a period of time, and they're giving them iPhone and telling them to show up at immigration court in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Are you kidding me? By that time, they become enculturated, they become part of America. Or else they're living in the underground, afraid that they're going to get captured. And that happens too. It's a terrible thing. When you have families who've been here a certain number of years and they're still afraid that somebody from the government is going to show up and tell them they have to leave. What happens when they have children? They become citizens of this country. You're going to send mommy and daddy back and tell the kid, we're going to put you in a foster home. Good luck. Good luck. No, we have responsibility to those families and to those children. You know, I'll tell you something else. A lot of people don't think about this, but we should. We should think about it because most of us see it every day. What about those people that we employ to take care of our beautiful neighbors? I go down the streets day after day, and I see people, foreigners, little people, Guatemala, Honduras, Central America, women, dressed up from head to toe, cutting the lawns on the roof, trimming trees, cleaning. You think they're all legal? Oh, no, they're not. No, they're not. If I would say so, most of them are not. How do we live without those people? How do we keep up our standard of living? We can't. You know what? At this point, we need them. That's the fact. That's the fact. So what are we going to do? We have to do something. We have to find, number one, some way to legalize their existence here. Might mean a worker's visa, might mean a green card, maybe some other creative way of making them legal. Taking the fear out of them of being deported, but also to enable them to pay into our social security system. Many times these people are being paid in cash, under the table. How does Father O know? I'll tell you how I know. The immigration lawyers tell me. And a lot of them want to straighten their lives out. They've been here a while. You know how they pay the lawyers' fees? In cash. In cash. These are not bad people. These are people who are trying to make a life for themselves and for their families. You tell the politicians, number one, stop playing games. They're playing games both sides. They're playing games. It's the same thing with this debt deal. You think we're not going to come to an agreement? Yeah, they're playing games, making it look good. The border, they keep blaming themselves. Human lives are at stake. Are they worried about them? Yeah, they're worried about getting reelected. That's what it's about. Secure the border. Make sure that we are able to take care of these people. They're human beings. They need health facilities. They need schooling. They need job training. They need protection from those people who are threatening them. That's important. Tell the politicians to stop playing games with human beings. A lot of times people like to wash their hands and say, it's not my problem. Oh, yes, it is. It's your problem, number one, as an American. Americans are humane people. We're good people. We welcome people from all over the world to come to this country, enjoy freedom, and to make something of their lives for themselves and for their children and for their children. Tell the politicians the games are over. Tell the politicians that they are called to be moral people. They are called to be leaders of a moral nation. And it's not just for the good of a person, a family, but it's important for the souls of these human beings because they're made in God's image and likeness. And that we, as the people of God, are called to announce the good news. Well, to all the world, Jesus says, tell the good news. That each and every one of us, whether we come from the United States or from Europe or from Guatemala or from China, wherever the case may be, we're called to share in the resurrection of Jesus and to be with him forever in heaven. Don't kid yourselves. This is your responsibility. Don't kid yourself into believing that the politicians don't pay attention to what you're saying. They do. And if they want to be reelected, you tell them that they have some gospel standards to live up to.